Thank you so much for joining us here for an hour to give. We get together this time to talk about philanthropy, community, and volunteerism. And this week we're profiling Rideauwood Addictions and Family Services. And it is my pleasure to welcome the one and only, the Executive Director, Joanne Levesque. Hi, Joanne.
Hey, Sam. It's great to be here. Thanks again.
So great to see you. You know how I feel about Rideauwood.
Yes, and you're very kind.
Very passionate about the work that you do. And you brought a friend with you.
I did.
Don Burke is
I
here.
did.
Hi, Don. How are
Hi.
you?
Very well, thank you.
Good,
Thanks
good.
for having us.
You're not only a board member, what other role do you have?
I am also the chair of, the committee chair of the Fund Development Committee for the organization as well. Yeah.
That's an important role.
Apparently it is.
It is, absolutely. We're going to talk a little bit about that. Joanne, for those that may not be familiar with Rideauwood, tell us what you do.
Sure. So Rideauwood provides person-centered treatment, so counseling, either individual or in group, prevention and education to people who are affected by substance use and behavioral addictions like problem gambling or gaming throughout Ottawa. And not only to the individuals, but to their loved ones and caregivers, their family members.
And Joanne, I don't think we would have been here 10 years ago. The world's changed. We have to talk about these things openly, and that's been a good thing.
That's so true. We do need to talk about that. I think that stigma is the biggest barrier to access to treatment. It's what stands in the way of people getting the help that they deserve and that they need.
Absolutely, beautifully said. Turling Construction today made this show happen. We want to give them a big thank you, of course. Inspiring people to come along the journey, Dawn, is part of your job in terms of fund development as well.
Right.
And encouraging people to really understand the work of Rideauwood. Give us a sense of what you're hoping to inspire people about today.
Well, really it's to identify the fact that Rideauwood has been a member of the healthcare community in Ottawa for over 45 years. Very successfully so. Thousands of clients have come through our doors and have progressed, dealt with their issues in many cases, in most cases, quite frankly. I think we have great clinical staff, care staff, and it's to get that message out there. As you just mentioned with Joanne, it's mental health issues and the stigma that was formerly attached to those issues. People didn't talk about it, but today people do talk about it. People are honest with one another, honest with their employers in many cases as well. They're looking for that help, and I think it's very important that organizations like Rideauwood, as I say, that have been so successful in offering treatment and programs right across the board in terms of not only family programs, but student programs, adult programs, dealing with all manner of issues, gambling, substance use, tech use, for instance, which is becoming a big issue these days. So it's to bring that message out to people, to remind people that Rideauwood is there, organizations like Rideauwood are there, and because we're a key player, I think, or certainly an important player in the healthcare system in Ontario, in Ottawa, in the Ottawa community, we have to remind people too that there's a cost to all of that, and there's limited finances in the province of Ontario, I guess, really, to support healthcare teams across the province, and we're often in need, and we would like to venture into new programs, new research and whatnot. Those are things that people can support financially.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I see why you brought Don with you.
Isn't he great?
He's great.
He's
wonderful.
great.
And I think coming from a community member, there's a comfort in that, knowing that the community is supporting you. Now, something Don said made my whole day. He said, this is part of healthcare. Hallelujah to that.
Isn't that wonderful?
Yes.
Absolutely.
So talk to me a little bit about that.
So, so substance use health and mental health, and that's all part of healthcare. And Don was right. We play a critical part in that. And I think that the fact that we now look at, we used to talk about either using or not using. And we don't look at it that way anymore. We can look at substance use on a spectrum. So from not using to experimenting to some use to where then the use becomes more problematic, and then it's a serious use. Right. But what that means then is that we can tailor our programs to where people are at. We often say at Rideauwood that there's not just one path is the path that you choose, that's the right path for you.
Right, right, and I think that's such an important piece, Dawn, to be able to really hear that that there is hope. I mean, I'm hearing hope when I hear Joanne talk.
Oh no, absolutely, and it's very interesting that Joanne, talks about the different approaches, whether it be abstinence, whether it be controlled, use, if that's the case, just understanding what triggers use. Those are all important. And being on the board and having been a board member now for 2 years, I guess, or a little over 2 years, that was really educational to have that message sort of driven home. And each board meeting, we start out with an education session. We have some of our clinical people in talking to us. Even more importantly and more impressive, quite frankly, are some of the clients who have gone through the programs. They come back to tell us about how the programs assisted them, where they are in their lives, how they're progressing. Very, very educational, and just the approach of the team at Rideauwood to help people in that regard, and deal with issues.
Yeah.
Individuals, families, it's very educational.
Yeah, beautifully said.
Yeah.
Joanne, let me ask you this. It's a two-parter.
Okay.
First part, what keeps you up at night? And then I'll ask you the second part after.
Okay. So what keeps me up at night? We're not talking about the pandemic as much as we used to, but throughout the pandemic, and it still continues, we are seeing people who are have more complex needs, and we still have wait lists. Right. So it's what do we need to do to be able to meet that need, and in a way that really supports the goals of our clients. And along with that, I think that so working with clients who have more acute needs, more complex needs, more needs, that's also hard on our team. So across our sector right now, not just at Rideauwood, but across the sector, we're really seeing in healthcare that there's an issue with staff wellness. Wow. So, how do we as an organization, I know we have conversations at the board about that, so what do we do organizationally in the community as a sector to make sure that the people who provide this much needed services and service are well?
Second part of the question, what gets you out of bed in the morning?
The work that we do. So the mission of this organization, the vision of a healthy, connected community, that just the staff and the clients we serve. I just feel so fortunate to be able to be the ED, to be able to be in this role at Rideauwood. There's no better job.
Yeah. And you do a beautiful job, by the way.
You're very kind.
Yeah,
it's a whole team, right? So from the board, we have an amazing board of directors, to the staff, and even people who work in the background that aren't providing the counseling. But that all those functions, everybody's all, and we're all passionate about what we do. I think that's part of our DNA at Rideauwood. If you're joining Rideauwood team, you're passionate about this.
And I saw you when you started the journey, and to see you continuing, it's been an honor to watch
thank
that.
you.
So thank you for that. And Dawn, when you hear the passion from Joanne, and you hear those fears about wait lists and those challenges as well, does it get you up in the morning to try and solve some of that?
Well, it certainly does, and I know, and I'm glad Joanne mentioned the other board members, because the Fund Development Committee, there's 3 or 4 of us on that committee, but we have a board of 13 members, and quite frankly, they're all terrific ambassadors for the organization. They understand the values, the mission of the organization and whatnot. They're certainly willing to go out and speak to their own network, to assist the Fund Development Committee and hopefully encourage people to make donations or financially support. So yeah, that's exciting, quite frankly. It's when you can organize something or contribute in that way, bring sponsors to different events. The big annual event that we have at Rideauwood is Medallion Night, where clients who have graduated through their programs and whatnot and are taking the next chapter or entering into the next chapter of their lives, they're recognized for what they've done, and it's really it's very inspiring. I must say, it is tremendously inspiring, and to understand what some people have had to get through in order to live what we would consider to be a normal daily routine, or understand a normal daily existence, is just tremendously impressive. Again, we encourage our supporters to sponsor events like that, because there's a cost to recognizing and putting on that event. So if we can achieve that and bring people into the Rideauwood family, all the better.
Rideauwood family, I love it. And that medallion night, it happens one night. Does it fuel you for the other 364 nights?
It does. And not only medallion night, but every time I have an opportunity to connect with a client, whether they're coming in my office or whether we see each other in the hall and we chat, those small steps, all that just fuels us for the rest of the year.
Yeah, it's beautiful, beautifully said. And if somebody is inspired today, Dawn, and they're like, I want to connect with Dawn, I want to be a sponsor, how are they doing that?
Well, they can connect through my office. I'm a partner lawyer with the firm of Kelly Santini in Ottawa, and also Cantini St. Pierre, who is involved with Rideauwood as a fundraiser and communications executive, certainly through her and through the website for Rideauwood as well.
For sure,
Yeah.
for sure. Cantini does a great job.
She does a very good job.
Keeps us all in line.
She does.
I love it.
She does. She's
I
fabulous.
love it. We're going to come back and chat with you. We're going to chat with some clients today. Just in terms of Turlin, they've been a big part of today. Give a quick shout out to Turlin for what they've done.
You know, I can't say enough about Turlin. We met them during the pandemic, and right away was like, how can we help? And our relationship's grown, from there. It's always such a pleasure to connect with Catherine and Terry.
That's wonderful. We're going to be speaking with Catherine a little bit later,
Yes.
so we look forward to that. Joanne Levesque, thank you so much for being here,
My
Executive Director of Rideauwood Addictions and Family Services. And Dawn, you have just made my day. Dawn joining us
thank
today
you
as
very
well.
much.
Thank you so much for being here
Thanks
and
for having us.
for sharing your thoughts about Rideauwood. We have got so much to share with you today about Rideauwood and Family Services. Thank you so much for being here on An Hour to Give. Don't go anywhere. We're going to be right back. Stay with us, everyone. Us here for An Hour to Give. I'm Sam Laprade, so happy to be with you. This week, thanks to Turlin Construction, we are featuring Rideauwood Addiction and Family Services. And our next guest is Nico. Welcome to the show.
Hi, thanks, Sam.
Nico, how are you connected to this organization?
Yeah, so I am a former and current client of Rideauwood. I started there in 2019 with their youth and young adult program. And since then, I've done individual counseling. I've done their Choices and Changes group, which is a harm reduction group. I've also done Smart Recovery meeting that they host there. And then currently I'm doing individual counseling. I've done another one of their programs, which is the Adult Integrated Program, which is where they combine harm reduction and abstinence into one group.
Someone described Rideauwood to me once as a lifeline. Does that make sense to you?
For sure. Like when I started at Rideauwood, I really felt kind of lost. I wasn't really sure how to move forward with my life. I wasn't really sure how to kind of get out of this cycle that I was stuck in. And I really felt like, I got that hope and that second chance to really change things for myself.
And everyone deserves that second chance.
For sure, yeah. And
it's
I think
sometimes hard to see, but
for sure. And I think I really believe in people having the capacity to change. I think everybody has really this endless potential for change.
How did you hear about Rideauwood? I always fascinated how people walk through the doors for the first time.
Yeah, so I think I was looking for services. I was in a place where, like I kind of said, I was really lost and I didn't really know where to turn. I had just gotten this a certain diagnosis, and it was kind of made clear to me that this was an area where I needed to put some effort into, and some changes had to be made. And I kind of searched it out, and yeah, it kind of started from there.
And did you come to them before the pandemic, or was it during the pandemic?
Just before the pandemic, and then yes, and the pandemic hit.
Yeah, and the reason I ask that is because I think a lot of people during the pandemic really sort of looked inward, and thought, how can I use this time to work on myself?
No, for sure, that definitely was it was part of my story as well. I think I had that introduction just before the pandemic, but then when I was kind of with this added anxiety, added stress that kind of came with the pandemic, that definitely kind of brought me to reflect more and to look at how I could, move forward even in this like difficult time.
So what would you say to Nico if you could go back in time and speak to yourself the minute before you walked through Rideauwood? Is there a conversation you would have with yourself?
I would probably say that, just be open and stick with it. Know that like you're in a place where people are very supportive and really care and want the best for me, and be willing to try new things. I think those.
And what's the difference between that Nico and today's Nico?
Big question. I think there's a huge difference. I mean, yes, externally my life is different, but internally I think I have so many more tools to apply in my life and to use. I have so much more self-compassion. I feel a lot more confident in my capacity for change, but also in my capacity to try new things. I feel a lot more capable today, and a lot more hope as well.
You've used hope a couple times, and I love that. Do your friends and family see it? Have they been witness to this change?
For sure, yeah. My parents have been a huge support throughout my recovery, and they definitely credit Rideauwood with a lot of that success, and they kind of held hope for me when I wasn't really able to hold that for myself. I think Rideauwood was able to do that as well, the counselors I had there. And they've definitely seen huge changes.
So let me ask you, what does that mean to hold hope for you? Is that something someone's verbalizing to you? Is it done in a, from your experience, is it done in a soft way? Is it a letter they've written you? Is it space that they've given you? What does that mean to hold hope for you?
Yeah, so I think in my experience, it was really about not giving up on me. Even when, it definitely, recovery for me hasn't been like this straight trajectory. It's been, some ups and downs, and just sticking with me and believing in me when I was struggling to believe in myself, and being able to like meet me where I'm at and accept me for where I was at. And I think like the key thing though was like not give up on me when I wanted to give up on myself.
Did you ever think in a million years you'd be here on TV and on radio talking about this incredible opportunity to work with the Rideauwood team?
No, certainly not. I did not expect that at all. Even this was like kind of last minute for me, and I'm just really grateful for the opportunity.
Yeah. And it just shows in your eyes. Like just when you said that, you're like, this is great. I think it's wonderful, because I think what's happening, I'm hoping what's happening in Canada is these conversations that we're having today and conversations that others have had about issues, whether it be something with Rideauwood, is that it gives others the opportunity to speak out and speak up and hopefully source their own treatment or their own path towards feeling better about themselves. So there may be somebody listening, watching right now that gets completely inspired by you. What would you say to them if they're maybe feeling a bit hopeless?
I would say that there is help. There are supports. There are people that really care and are willing to walk with you through that journey, and just to stick with it. Like I said, it wasn't this straight trajectory. It's taken a lot of work and a lot of tenacity to get through, but it's been so worth it.
For sure.
Yeah.
And we spoke with Joanne Levesque, Executive Director for Rideauwood Addictions and Family Services, a little bit earlier, and she was talking about, the vast number of programs. How important is it for you that you can kind of grow with the programs that are there?
Yeah, no, that's been huge for me. I did hear her mentioning that. I think because it's not this, black or white when you look at substance use. It really is this like spectrum of use, and I think, starting from when I felt kind of this hopelessness and not really sure where to turn, not really sure what the next steps were going to be, towards harm reduction, like I mentioned, that harm reduction program, moving into trying to decide what the next steps for me were. For some people, harm reduction is all they need. It works for them. For me, I've chosen abstinence, and that's been a big thing for me.
Yeah, I can only imagine what that's been like for you. Have you completed a full program that you're really proud to sort of talk about? Has that been part of it as well, that you feel, that you've sort of moved from one to another?
Yes. So I recently, about a couple months ago, I finished the adult integrated program, and that was huge. It was 20 weeks long, and it involved a psychoeducational component, and then also a psychotherapy component, all in a group setting. And what I liked about that was it really, yes, there was a counselor that was facilitating and had the knowledge, but there was also kind of the knowledge in the space with other members of the group, and we were able to support each other, empathize with each other, and that really speaks to like this peer support idea that I'm very passionate about.
Yeah, and let's talk a little bit more about that, because I think there is something about getting into a room with people that have had their own journey, but being able to relate to somebody, because I would think, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, I would think that it would be a lonely place sometimes, and coming into a room where someone says, oh, that's how I felt on such and such a day, and you can go, that's how I felt, right? That it kind of creates that that community, if you will, and takes away some of that isolation.
Yes, for sure. I know, like, for meeting peer supporters for myself, meeting people that have similar experiences, had gone through similar things, that was huge in my recovery. And I think community too has been an enormous factor in my recovery as well. Like you said, that feeling of isolation, I think isolation really defines addiction. So trying to counteract that, trying to break out of that isolation, I think is like an integral part of recovery.
For sure. Nico's joining us today to talk about his recovery, their recovery, and I think one of the things for me is the opportunity for us today to talk a little bit about the Rideauwood team. Talk to me a little bit about how important that Rideauwood team is and how crucial it is for you to to connect with them.
Well, I'm also very grateful and fortunate that I am a part of the Rideauwood team myself. I am their peer support worker. There's this partnership that we've been able to facilitate between this organization called Psychiatric Survivors of Ottawa, which is a peer support organization, and Rideauwood, and I'm kind of the link between those two organizations. So I get to meet with clients of Rideauwood, and I get to support them through their own recovery journey using my own experience. I get to empathize, like we were just saying, like the importance of that connection, and having someone who has been through that. So that's been huge.
It's wonderful, and then to have you part of the team. What do the team at Rideauwood say about that you've had this lived experience?
Yeah, I mean, I've kind of come full circle, right? And it just feels really great to be able to kind of give back in a way that Rideauwood has been able to give to me. To build on this experience that I have, to be able to kind of be a part of the team, and connect with both the staff and the clients. It's been a really rewarding experience so far, and I'm just really grateful to have the opportunity.
Well, you've inspired me today. Thank you so much for sharing your story. And I know you've inspired those listening and viewing today. Thank you so much for spending time with us. Nico joining us today, talking about their experience with Rideauwood Addictions and Family Services. We are not going to stop. We're going to continue this conversation. We have a guest by the name of Catherine going to join us right after this short break. Stay with us here on An Hour to Give. And we're back on An Hour to Give. I'm Sam Laprade. I love this opportunity to talk about all things community. And I know Catherine McLaughlin loves talking about community too. And she joins me now. Hi, Catherine. How are you?
Good morning. Hi.
It's great to see you.
Nice to see you.
Turlin Construction. We've been talking about Turlin Construction this whole show because you're the reality of why this show is happening today. So thank you so much for that. And talk to me a little bit about Turlin Construction. What's the basis of your work?
Well, first and foremost, thank you so much for having us. We are thrilled to be here discussing with you at An Hour to Give. So Turlin Construction is a construction company. We're a general contracting business in Ottawa, and we build national retail chains.
It's amazing. And I see your name everywhere, by the way. I just saw it the other day and I was like, I know I'm chatting with Catherine soon. So Catherine, talk to me a little bit about the perspective of addictions and the workplace.
Right.
Because I think we often think about addictions and it's behind closed doors at home, and that's where we think about it. That is not the reality.
Correct.
So talk to me a little bit about that.
I mean, I would tell you, absolutely, it is impacting in families, but also in work families as well. And so quite often, if there is addiction happening with someone, if there's substance use disorder happening with someone, it trickles into work life as well. And so we as business owners are thrilled to partner with Rideauwood because it's a source for us to be able to help support our team member.
So it also creates a culture
Absolutely.
where there isn't those hush conversations, that you can have those conversations, feel supported. Because let's face it, we're at work a lot of our lives. And if someone is facing an addictions issue, it's not happening between 6 p.m. and 6 a.m.
Correct.
So if somebody was to approach a manager at Turlin and say, I've got to be honest with you, like, this is what I'm going through, how do you connect them with Rideauwood?
Well, so that's interesting. So having, a safe workplace for our team members, and Terry and I and our organization, we're not strangers to substance use disorder. And so we're have been able to kind of pick up on cues of things that might be happening with our staff. And so we try and have an open door policy. Well, we do have an open door policy and an open dialogue policy. And if someone is struggling, we feel that it is absolutely our responsibility to help facilitate someone get the help that they need.
Yeah, and it's wonderful. And the response from people in the workplace, even if they just know that that's there, do you feel that from the employees?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think one of the things too is that, as you know, substance use disorder, there's such a stigma attached to it. And that is one of the reasons that people don't seek the help that they so desperately need to live, happy and productive lives. And so, having that open, conversation and dialogue, letting people know that, there is help out there. And we are just so thrilled to be able to partner with Rideauwood to do that.
When I heard you talking about Rideauwood and Turlin Construction, the word that popped into my mind is there's a trust there.
Yeah.
And so to build that trust means that you've obviously, know that they're doing incredible work and that you know that their team is well qualified. Talk to me a little bit about the trust piece.
So we actually had the pleasure of meeting Rideauwood throughout the pandemic, actually. And the pandemic, as you know, was really difficult for a lot of people. We met Rideauwood not specifically for a client need, but we were needing to help service their facility. And so once we got in there and started talking to them, just recognizing and learning about the work that they actually do in the city and supporting families and patients, we wanted to align with them right away. So it just became very easy for us. They're an incredible organization. And the cool thing about it is not only does it look after the patient itself, it looks after the entire family. And so that's kind of how we view at Turlin Construction as well, is that it is the health of our family, right, within our organization.
So what would you say, because a lot of business owners tune into An Hour to Give to learn about philanthropy, community, volunteerism, and there may be a business owner that is listening, watching right now that are saying, I've got to be honest with you, this never crossed my mind to be able to have a partnership with an organization like this or connect with an organization like this. What would you say to them about making that first step?
Well, get involved, right? Get involved, because this organization needs all the support and organizations like this in our city. This organization, Rideauwood itself, does incredible work and has so many fingers out into the community. And so, again, for the health of your organization, do it, get involved, and help get rid of the stigma attached. You know, so many employees end up losing their jobs because they're not able to, you know, function and do the work that they need to do. And so, you know, coming alongside these folks and helping them and put the tools in front of them so that they can live their best lives. Get involved. Get involved.
And I think, you know, I'm thinking about lots of different jobs that have got a lot of stress. Construction, you know, timelines and supply chain and the pandemic, and I would think that there would be a lot of stress in the construction industry.
Sure there is, but that's, you know, that's the thing about addiction.
Right.
It doesn't matter what industry you're in. It literally trickles into everybody.
Yeah, good point.
So, you know, very rarely have I come across someone who has not had some experience with substance use, right? Disorder, or a family member, or a friend, or a colleague. And so, you know, the more we talk about this, the more that we're transparent about this, people can start living their best lives.
Absolutely, and that's what we want for everyone in this community.
That's what I want.
Absolutely. And when you hear about you know, the fund development efforts and the fundraising efforts, you know, I think about all the organizations in this community that are looking for dollars. Talk to me a little bit. What's the unique piece about Rideauwood that you would maybe inspire someone today to think about, you know, the three sort of branches of philanthropy: time, talent, and treasure?
Yeah. So, I mean, I think specifically with Rideauwood, you know, who they service and how they service, it's just all encompassing, I guess is the word I'm looking for, maybe. And so they treat not only the patient, but their entire being. So their mental health, their physical, the whole bit. So,
yeah, no, it's wonderful to be connected with them. And Turlin Construction, obviously, you've been around a long time. Rideauwood's been around a long time. That trust between the two organizations, as I mentioned, is really important. Is this just the way Turlin's going to operate moving forward? That this is just, we see ourselves as a family. If you have an addictions issue, you're supported here.
Absolutely. And partnering with Rideauwood, again, we know as business owners that we have the support that we need to make sure that our employees are leading their best lives.
For sure. And when, you know, I can't help but think about all of the different events that go on in the city, and they were mentioning the medallion event and looking for supporters for that. They were mentioning all different types of events. Joanne and Dawn joined us a little bit earlier talking about all of those pieces. I don't think there would be a dry eye in the place for on medallion night, you know, how important that would be. So all of those kinds of initiatives as well coming from Rideauwood, just another great reason for Turlin to get involved.
Absolutely. I mean, again, you know, the wonderful work that they do, it's very easy to align with this organization for sure.
100%. And speak to Joanne and the team for me.
Oh man, what a team of incredible powerhouse people. I mean, just, you know, the relationships that we've built with them, the trust that we have built with them, we feel very privileged and grateful that we can partner with them. And that's honestly how we feel. That is kind of this is our family mantra, to be in service of others. And so to find an organization that has embraced us, we feel very privileged.
And it's so funny, I just the irony of Turlin, you know, construction and building building things, building your family, I think there's an irony there that you want to see people grow and be their authentic selves.
Absolutely. Yep, absolutely.
Yeah, it's wonderful to be able to share all this time with you and to have the opportunity to really see that Turlin and Rideauwood have come together to be together on this show. I mean, when you got the opportunity to say Rideauwood can share their story on An Hour to Give, walk me through the thought process of supporting this initiative.
Yeah, so again, being, business owners in this community, we feel very much that we are part of this community and that we need to be in service of others in our community. And so to support Rideauwood and help them, give them a platform to share their story and to help anyone who is in need of, we were right on board with that. Absolutely.
Where do you see your relationship with Rideauwood in 5 years from now? Is this something that you're long-term looking at?
Absolutely. I mean, we're in for the long haul.
Yeah. You're stuck with you.
You're stuck with us if they'll have us.
Yeah, of course they will. Yeah, that's great. And I think those sustainable relationships is really what makes this city tick. I love this city.
I love this city too.
too.
I love this city too. And having productive and healthy members in our community is essential to the health of the city.
Absolutely.
Right? So however we can best support that, we're in.
Yeah, beautifully said. Catherine McLaughlin, thank you so much for being here and talking about your relationship with Rideauwood, Turlin Construction, and how important that has been. Really, really key for sure. And to have all these great guests today. I know, to have Joanne and Don join us and Nico share his story. Joanne's going to join us back in a few minutes and talk a little bit more about Rideauwood. But just to have those different perspectives, I think is really important. Yours was a really important perspective today.
Oh, thanks. I'm really happy to be here.
Really,
Thank you
really
so much.
appreciate it. Catherine McLaughlin joining us today from Turlin Construction. Thank you, Turlin Construction, for this opportunity today. Lots to talk about. Stay with us here on An Hour to Give. I'm Sam Laprade, and we are back on An Hour to Give. I have been incredibly inspired by all of our guests today from Rideauwood Addictions and Family Services. The inspiration is not going to stop. Joanne Levesque is back, and she's the executive director of this wonderful organization. Joanne, I thought I knew a lot about Rideauwood until today. I learned so much today. I can't imagine what it's like to have a role like yours, be the leader of this organization. Each day, you must just learn more and more about people.
I do, and you know what? And it's a huge honor and a privilege. And sometimes it's like, okay, I really want to do right by our team, by the board, by our clients, by our partners, and everybody we serve.
Lots of
amazing.
stakeholders.
Lots of partners, absolutely.
So we've heard, and it's right in your name, we've heard the word family a lot today. Talk to me a little bit about that piece, because I think there's one thing about helping a person go through recovery, but one thing I know about addictions is it's not just a person.
No.
It's a family issue.
No.
So why is it so important that Rideauwood embrace the whole family?
Yeah. Actually, I'll tell you, when we started 47 years ago, one of our pillars was supporting families and caregivers. And that's when it was innovative then. It's considered best practice now. So very proud of that from Rideauwood's perspective. But so you're right. So when somebody's struggling with their substance use or gambling or gaming behaviors, it's not just them. Right? And so, and sometimes the person who's struggling isn't ready to accept help. Or they're just, that's not where they're at in their journey. And so there are programs for family members and caregivers to help them understand. So we have a Family Spiral, which is a 2-evening virtual psychoeducation group where people can learn more about substance use and addiction, and then to start learning more about some of the tools that are available for them so that they can cope, because they also need to keep themselves healthy.
Oh, 100%.
Absolutely.
And that's so important. Now, we talk about, when we think about substance abuse, we tend to think about alcohol and we think about drugs. You've mentioned as well a lot about gambling. I think that might surprise people. So it's really important that people hear that this is open to many different people for many different reasons.
So you're right, we often talk about substance use when we talk about behavioral addictions, so around gambling and gaming. And I think Dawn mentioned earlier, and even problematic tech use, we've seen an increase in that with our youth during the pandemic.
Talk to me about the tech use piece, because I think, we tend to be kind of, I'm on my phone too much, but it can really impact people. Educate me here, Joanne.
Well, absolutely. And so that's interesting when you look at tech use. So sometimes parents will call and they'll say, my kid's on their iPad. I'm dating myself. They're on their phone all the time. It's getting in the way of. And for kids, are saying that's how we connect. Chill, mom. Relax. So it's really trying to find what is so. When tech use becomes a problem is when it's actually getting in the way of your activities of daily living. When you're choosing to be on the phone rather than connecting with friends in different ways, or you just can't stop. So that's when there's some work to be done, right?
For sure. I belong to a few moms groups because I'm a mom, and I noticed as well that there was a heartbreaking post the other day, a woman talking about her son who was playing a lot of video games, and that he had stopped even coming to the table for dinner. And I thought, wow, like that is, he wanted just to, just bring my food downstairs, and she's like, this is the way our family is. I mean, is that an example of someone that may be reaching out?
So that is an example. And earlier this year, we partnered with Ottawa U and the Center of Excellence for Child and Youth Mental Health, and to look at this, kind of do a bit of a deeper dive in terms of problematic tech use. And we, with the help of that group, we developed some infographic sheets that really so some are dedicated to the students, to others to families, others to professionals, in terms of giving them tools on how to deal with these issues. Yeah. There's a lot more work to be done in this area.
Oh, I can't
We're just
imagine.
beginning to understand it.
Because really, I mean, I remember I got my first iPhone, I remember, the year my daughter was born, and so she's going to be 16 soon. So it's really only been around a short period of time, that type of technology, and then you add gaming consoles, and then the list goes on and on and on. But I would assume the layers there's lots to peel and lots to learn.
And technology is part of our lives. And even for adults, I was chatting with a friend of mine on the weekend who was saying, I find myself, if I look at my phone, that I'm on there for 5 hours and I've not seen the day. Because I think I need to maybe think about limiting that use. Yeah. Right? Yeah. So those are the kinds of questions that people need to deal with.
And listen, you've been around for 45 years. I mean, not you personally at the organization.
60 years, me.
Yeah. But you've been around a number of years at this organization. But you think back to when the organization was created so many decades ago. I mean, if somebody would have sat down 45 years ago and said, one of the programs is going to be, you're on your phone, they would have been like, what are you talking about, right?
Know.
So evolving and keeping up with that research and keeping up, that would be an absolute pillar of your work as well.
Absolutely. So we really pride ourselves on using evidence-informed treatment. And that's part of the quality, so the quality standard that is part of everything that we do.
Let's bust some myths. So people may have a perception of somebody that would go to Rideauwood. Bust the myths for us, because I think, in my opinion, addictions knows no face. It's everywhere.
It is, right? So it can be your neighbor, the person across the street, the person you work with. I think sometimes when we look at somebody who may be struggling with substances or problem gambling or gaming, what we see, I imagine an iceberg. So people see the problematic behavior, but what they don't see is what's going on underneath. They don't see, the layers of trauma, of really difficult childhood experiences, all the things that are part of why that person may be using substances. And I think it's important that we look past that. We look past just that behavior to see, I wonder what else is going on, and how, and not judge, because then we get back to that stigma, right? So when we judge, then we discriminate, and people who need and deserve the help don't access it, and sometimes they're afraid to ask for it, and that's wrong.
I often think about a person's life as a book. And some people, when they're in that addiction phase, they're they've just kind of progressed with their addiction. They can see their lives as the whole book is wrapped in addiction.
Yeah.
I love to think about it as either a chapter or a page, that it's not their whole story.
No. And it doesn't define us, right? So I loved when Nico talked about their own experience, right? So it's a series of ups and downs, and it's not a linear journey.
Yeah.
So, and I think those are important things to remember.
Nico was an incredible guest.
They were,
and I'll remember that conversation for a very long time.
Yes.
Walk me through what it means for someone to reach out. What's the process? If we've inspired someone today and they decide they're going to reach out to Rideauwood, what's that very first call like?
So they would call our organization number 724-4881. A receptionist, a member of our admin team will answer, and we'll answer any basic questions. And then we'll ask them some questions, and then we'll get them set up for what's called an intake. I think that first call takes a lot of courage.
Oh, that's what I was
I think people can be scared. How will I be received? Am I going to be judged? Am I doing the right thing? You know, I don't know if I really want to do this. And all those questions are valid questions because we work with people through every stage of the use, whether they're thinking about changing, whether they're not sure if it's like, do I want to stop using substances? How do I just make it better so I can continue using substances? And then, so we ask those basic questions, and then there's an intake, and then we can slot people into programs that work for them.
I spoke with a friend one time who was going through some challenges with addictions, and they talked about the very first time they reached out was just to test with somebody.
Sure.
Do I have a problem? Because, you know, their friends, they were, you know, out drinking and doing all sorts of stuff, and was it impacting their lives like it was impacting my life? And they just wanted to say, like, is this a problem? Am I seeing this as a problem? And that, I think, is a very brave conversation as well, because we can sometimes, unfortunately, the media and what we see on movies and TV can kind of give us a false sense of what's normal.
And I think that's why when we talk about substance use on that spectrum, again, that Nico was talking about, from, you know, so no use to experimenting. So we know that people will try to some beneficial use, and then it becomes more complicated, right? So there are if it affects your personal life, it may affect your family. Maybe you're struggling to get up and go to work in the day, every day, and then it becomes even more problematic. So when we talk about a substance use disorder, that's a medical condition. There are criteria for that. So anybody who's on that spectrum who's asking questions, I really encourage them to reach out.
It's so important to just have that first call, that first reach out. It can be just a first appointment, right? It's the first step.
And that's what I was saying. So we were talking about our team earlier. So we have amazing counselors. We have amazing admin staff, because it's important that when you make that call, you want that warm, friendly, non-judgmental voice at the other end
100%.
that says, we're here to help.
And I picture Rideauwood, a big giant table, and everybody at the table. You've obviously got these incredible clients, a dedicated staff, very skilled board members, fund development team. Who's missing at the table? Who still needs to come to the table at Rideauwood?
We're always building. So we're always building that circle of care, right? We have lots of partners. Who's missing? That's a really good question. Who's missing? I think I'm stumped. But really, we have such amazing partners. And I think the sector is changing right now. And it's really about making sure that we do everything we can so that people have easier access to the care they need. So when we partner with people, when we partner with organizations, that's really the focus.
Yeah. You're putting some leaves in that table so it can grow, right? Yeah, which I love. I think that's wonderful. And, you know, I think about the incredible expertise you bring to this role as executive director, and as I said earlier, seeing you in your early days and seeing you now, and the tenacity that takes, the heart that takes, the sleepless nights that takes. We don't talk about this when it comes to nonprofit leaders. No. It's a lot on your shoulders. You do it beautifully. walk me through how important it is that you've got that board support, you've got that staff support, all these stakeholders are at that table with you, Joanne.
That makes a huge difference because it can be, so an executive director role can be lonely sometimes, but knowing that there is a group around you, that there's a board that's there to provide that great leadership, that great guidance. We have, as you mentioned, like really gifted clinicians. And I mentioned earlier, and everybody who works sort of in the background, that just makes all the difference. And you grow in the role. And you know what? You also need a fair amount of humility because those experiences and those tough moments, so that you can connect with other leaders in the sector, say, how am I doing? Are you feeling this too? Right? And then we have the opportunity to come and meet with you and then share our story. So
I love that. It's ironic because Nico was speaking about the peer support, and then you're also connecting with your peers to make Rideauwood the best it can be, which I think is really important for sure. Yeah.
When we talk about some of the change in the sector, more and more, so people who are delivering services are also recognizing the importance of people who have lived experience, and how do we engage people with lived experience across every part of the organization. So Nico did a great job about talking about the peer support that he's offering, and then we look at, so can they help us with planning, right? So there's just other a lot of other facets of work that we can all do together.
Yeah, it's wonderful. It's been a joy to spend time with you. Thank you so much, Joanne Levesque, joining us today. Joanne, of course, is from Rideauwood Addictions and Family Services. It has been an honor and a privilege to spend time with these representatives today from this wonderful organization. I hope we've inspired you to reach out to them. I'm Sam Laprade. Thanks so much for spending time with us today on An Hour to Give.